a serious breakout candidate for Texas A&M's defense, I think it's got to be Rylan Kennedy.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, ladies and gentlemen, today I have some breakout candidates to run through on both sides of the ball. I think on defense, you've got some. I think it's more of an interesting defensive conversation than it is offensive. I think a lot of the breakout candidates are guys I talk about a lot here on the show. I think that the defensive breakout candidates are names that you don't hear as often. So, starting with Rylan Kennedy. I mean, listen. If you'd asked me 5 months ago, what's Rylan Kennedy's role going to be this year, I would have said, not much, if anything. Like, what are you talking about? But he has absolutely turned heads so far. He's a name that we haven't talked about at all, really. I mean, just not a name I thought you'd see crack the rotation this year. He's that type of piece that I thought maybe a couple of years in the system, developing, getting stronger, developing that college football body. Maybe as a junior, he starts bumping into some snaps. I did not expect him to be the type of player that walks right into sophomore season playing time. Would not have expected that. But he is the type of guy, just watching film from him at practice, at his frame, 6'4", 240, 250, wherever he's. Let me see what they have him on the actual roster. Weight-wise, I think it's 240 because he's 6'4". I know he's 6'4". All right, let's see. He is 6'4", 240. So listed at 6'4", 240. Rylan Kennedy is a guy who could surprise some folks. I mean, edge rushers, you can't have enough edge rushers. It's a position where you can have a lot of guys switch in and out. You want to have fresh bodies. You want to have guys well-rested because you got to be able to get after the quarterback. You want fresh bodies to be able to go out there and say, okay, this is your snap. Come off the edge. Go get them. And, Rylan Kennedy's a guy who, with a Cassius Howell, with these different guys, can go out there and help get after the quarterback. You can't ever have enough players to get after the quarterback. So he's a guy. This kind of reminds me, and it's different because this was a freshman compared to a sophomore, but it reminds me a little bit of the Terrion York hype. It was around this time last year people started to go, Terrion York, he's pretty good. Maybe he might crack the lineup. It kind of feels similar to that for Rylan Kennedy. It feels like the guy that, hey, maybe he's going to find some playing time that we were not expecting. So I think that's really going to be interesting to see what happens with him. But he's a name that, over this last week, I've been hearing people getting excited saying, hey, listen, Rylan Kennedy is a dude. Watch out for him. He's going to play a role for this football team. So I'm buying into it. The next guy I have here, and this is a name that I don't think anybody should be confused is on this list, and that is none other than DJ Hicks. He's a guy. And similar to Rylan Kennedy. Now, I do believe that Rylan Kennedy had more to figure out, more to do than DJ Hicks. I think, obviously, Rylan Kennedy was ranked like 600 in the recruiting class. DJ Hicks was one of the best players in the class. Like, it's not a rocket science take from the kid here. But you get what I'm saying. Like, they're both buried in a deep room, in a deep defensive line where it's hard to get out there. DJ Hicks is a really, really, really good football player that I don't think the college football world knows about yet. I don't think the college football world yet knows who DJ Hicks is. I think when 5 stars like DJ Hicks was, I think when guys like that don't play a ton of. I don't think when 5 stars don't play a lot as freshmen, I think people forget who they are. I think people have forgotten who DJ Hicks is. People are going, "Oh yeah, that DJ Hicks fellow. Who is he? Right? He's a really good football player with a high upside. We're talking a 5-star guy. I believe he was top 10 in his class, right? I mean, he's a no joke prospect with a really high upside that you didn't see last year because of how deep that room was. Really wasn't his fault. It's hard as a talented 5-star freshman to come in and get serious run when you have a defensive line that is that elite. So, to me, DJ Hicks, I think Rylan Kennedy, I led with Rylan Kennedy because he's the name recently. He's the one people are saying, hey, buy this now. But I think DJ Hicks, when it comes to this defense, is going to be the guy that we go, whoa, why was he not on the field last year? This dude's an absolute monster. I think he's going to have a big season. Then I've got one. It's a little different. It's a transfer, but it's Des Ricks. So here's the thing about Des Ricks. While he is a transfer, he's not a guy that was proven, and now he's got to come prove in the SEC. Last year at Alabama, he was behind a bunch of guys. He probably would have gotten out there this year, but it makes the move to Texas A&M, and he's going to have a really great season. And I do think that he's going to walk into a big role. I think that they're going to move a lot of guys around in the secondary to where I don't know if Des Ricks starts, but I know he's going to play a lot of snaps. And we know how talented he is. We know how good of a football player Des Ricks is. He just didn't have a ton of opportunities to Alabama last year because of how good that room was, which makes sense. I mean, you had, what was the dude, the second safety? His name Caleb Downs, was that it? Whatever. And then obviously Kool-Aid back there. You had some really good secondary players, so it was going to be hard for him to walk into some snaps. But I do believe that Des Ricks is going to play some snaps this year. I think he's a good football player with a really, really high upside. So I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do in college football in his first legitimate role. I think he's going to be really good, and I'm excited about it. The next thing I have here is Samu, the massive, massive interior defensive lineman, 6'3", 350. I mean, watch out. Nobody wants to mess with him. Nobody wants to have to block that. He's a guy, once again, I haven't heard his name floated around a lot, but he is an absolute unit. You can't teach that kind of size, that kind of athleticism. You can't teach it. You know what I mean? You just can't. It's kind of like, when they say you're a pitcher and you can't teach left-handed, which isn't true because I was born right-handed. My dad made me left-handed. I highly recommend, and I'll do that with my kids. I highly recommend that. If you're a big baseball fan, start putting stuff in your kid's left hand. That's what my dad did to me, and worked out. But, Sam is a really, really talented, skilled, athletic player at his size. And I think, once again, I mean, we're hearing a recurring theme now. It was a really deep room last year. It was a really deep Texas A&M defensive line room last year. It was hard for these young guys, for these freshmen to get on the field. But they have a ton of upside. There's a lot of talent that were young guys last year. And Samu, I mean, you just can't teach his size. I know I'm repeating that statement, but it's true. I think that he's going to bump into some snaps because of it. I think he is a really, really talented guy for his size, and I think that size can play in the SEC. So I'm really, frankly, stoked to see what his role looks like because he's the type of guy, he can clog the middle in the NFL. I'm telling you that right now. He's got that size. He's a player that can clog the middle in the NFL. I think teams are going to fall in love with him at the next level, and I think he's going to have a really solid Texas A&M career. So I'm all in on Samu. Another guy who we aren't talking about a ton. We aren't. But a guy that I'm buying the hype. I'm buying the hype. I'm not buying the hype. I'm trying to create the hype because I think he's a player that is going to find his way on the field some this season, and I'm excited to see it because he is built for the SEC, and I'm frankly excited to see how that works out for him. We're going to talk about the offensive guys, and frankly, I think the number one guy on this list, and it's a boring name, but I'm going to defend it hard. The number one name on this list for me is Noah Thomas, and I'm going to explain to you why he's going to break out coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I got to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs have wound down, we get fewer and fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And yes, of course, the Locked On Podcast Network as well. So moving on to the offensive side of the football. And, I've made it very clear. I think the name here, I think the player here that stands out to me on offense, it's Noah Thomas. Last year in that season opener, when he had about 17 touchdowns, we all went, uh-oh, here's Noah Thomas. But then the connection, once we saw Connor Rigman go down, once we saw the offense kind of, it was fine, wasn't great. Noah Thomas was banged up himself. He was in and out of the lineup, missed some time. It just never clicked like we all thought it would after that first game. I am now all in on the fact that it is going to click this season. I am a believer. I believe that Noah Thomas is going to have a massive season. And I think the college football community as a whole is starting to buy that as well. I mean, it's not hard to convince me that a 6'5", 6'6" receiver who can high point the football, strong, run solid routes, fast play, that he's going to be a great receiver. It's not hard to talk someone into that. And that's who Noah Thomas is. I think he's a guy. Do I think he has 1,000 receiving yards this year? No. Do I think he could get relatively close? Of course. Could he get to 850? Could he get to 900? I believe it. Is there a world where he gets 1,000 yards? I could see it. Because I think here's the deal. To have a really good season as a receiver, you got to have a really good quarterback. And y'all know my thoughts on Texas A&M's quarterback. I think he is really darn good. So the point here is this. I think that they have, the receiver room as a whole has the quarterback they need to have a good year. But I think Noah Thomas, for a while, I was all in on the Jade Walker, train. I was all in on that. I thought that he was going to have a really good season. And I still do. Let me rephrase that. I was all in on him having the alpha number one type of, the alpha dog number one player type of season. And I don't think that's going to be him because I'm now all in. I think it's going to be Noah Thomas. And for a while, like I said, I thought it was going to be Jade Walker. And I still think he has a great year. You could easily talk me into him having 600, 700 yards. You could easily talk me into him being the wide receiver one. But I'm now all in on Noah Thomas. I've made that shift. And I think Moose is going to have a good year too. I don't want it. No one mix up what I'm saying here. I think all these guys are going to have a significant role. And I think all these guys are going to be really good. I'm all in on that. I just think that there's a lot. I think there's a lot of talent in this room, but I think the guy with the highest upside is Noah Thomas. So I'm all in on Noah Thomas having a breakout season. And I don't know if I would call it as much a breakout season to Texas A&M fans as like a Rylan Kennedy or a Samu type breakout would be. I'm talking more of a breakout to the college football world. I think there's a serious world where Noah Thomas breaks out and he's one of the best, receivers in all college football. I could see that happening. I think he's got that type of talent. I think he's got that type of upside. So I am all in on him. The next guy I got here, and this is an interesting name. It's Trey Zune, the Aggies tackle. I think that Trey Zune has had a couple, solid years. He's been a good player. He's been a good player. I think it's time for him to be an elite player. So I am all in on Trey Zune. I think that he's going to put together a season that many aren't anticipating. Many don't look at Trey Zune. They said, okay, he's going to be a solid tackle in the SEC. I think that he's going to put it all together. I think Coach Cushing, the new offensive line coach, is a great coach. I think he's going to help these players get better when it comes to, the X's and O's of it, and when it comes to positioning and working on that stuff. I think that Trey Zune has a great season coming up. I think he's going to be one of the best tackles in the SEC. Not the best, but one of the best. So that is that's a really, really big deal that he has a big year, because y'all know my thoughts. I mean, I've reiterated this point. I beat this point to death, saying, listen, if this offensive line is good, this offense is going to be good. If it's not, this offense is not going to be as good as it could be. Like y'all know my thoughts on that. So if Trey Zune, who's, the leader of this offensive line and the leader of this team in general, if he has a good season, I think this team as a whole is going to have a good season. So hopefully he's been a solid player, but it's time for him to break out and be one of the better offensive tackles in the SEC and honestly in all of college football. The next name I have here is a freshman receiver, and that is Isaiah Williams. He's a guy, Coach Elko was able to flip, or not flip, was able to get late. And I like him a lot. I loved the film on him in high school. We've heard some good things out of him. I think he's learned the system quickly. He's a player. Does he have a massive season? I don't think a massive season. Could he have 250 receiving yards as a freshman to where next year we go, man, Isaiah Williams, watch out. This guy is going to be an absolute monster. Oh, yeah. I fully believe that can happen. I think he's a player that has the skill. I think he's got the necessary skill to be an NFL receiver. I really do. I think he's a great player. I don't think it's kind of like we just talked about. Well, the last year, the defensive line was really deep, and that's why you didn't see a lot of these defensive linemen. I think this receiver room is really talented, and without some injuries, I think it's going to be hard for Isaiah Williams to really crack the lineup. And I'm talking like, play 40 snaps a game, whatever. I don't see that happening this year, but I see him being a guy that plays enough snaps where heading into next season, we go, man, Isaiah Williams is going to be an absolute monster for the Aggies. So I'm excited about him. And then the other guy, and once again, this is another one that y'all know I've beaten this to death a little bit too, but it's Ruben Owens. And I think this is more, I'm not telling you a name y'all haven't heard. Y'all aren't going, well, who's Ruben Owens? It's not a name that is going to be a breakout name to Texas A&M fans. Ruben Owens is a name that's going to be a breakout name to college football. I think Ruben Owens has 1,000 yards rushing in him. I really do. I think that Coach Klein's offense is going to be great. I think that the ability of Texas A&M to throw the football and Connor Wickman to use his legs is going to just help this Texas A&M offense be even, or a running game be even better than we expect it to be. And I think Ruben Owens is going to be the guy in that room. And it's frustrating. I talked about this a little bit at the tail end of the show yesterday. I think the other running backs in this room are incredible. I do. I think top to bottom, this room is elite. But I think Ruben Owens is the best of them. And I think he's ready to prove that this year. I do. I mean, we saw last year at Kansas State for Coach Klein, he had a running back well over break 1,000 yards. And I think you're going to see Ruben Owens do that this season. I think he's going to be the 1A, and Le'Veon Moss is going to be the 1B. And I think that Ruben Owens gets it done. I think he cracks 1,000 yards. So I am really excited to see what sophomore season Ruben Owens looks like. He has just so much upside. He's talented. He's got everything you could ever want in a running back. And I think that he's finally ready to show that. The last name I have here is an interesting one, and it is Jacob Bostic, the transfer. A guy who comes in, and when he comes in, I go, well, what's this role for him going to be? What's he really going to do? Is he going to be like, are we going to see this guy genuinely on the field? What's this going to look like? And I'm now starting to buy into it more than I originally was. Jacob Bostic, remember, he's coming in from Iowa. It was Iowa. They're not very good at offense at Iowa. They struggle. So he's a player that I believe has the talent in there. So is it this? I think that Jacob Bostic, if you want to talk about him as a breakout candidate, I think it's more of a down the road breakout candidate than this year. But I do believe that the talent is in there. And I think that this coaching staff, Coach Wiggins, I believe they can get this talent out of him. I know he possesses it. And he's a receiver. He's got the size. He's got everything you need to be a great receiver in college football and in the SEC. And I think with time, he can prove that. But he's a guy. Don't be surprised if you see Jacob Bostic out there playing some football this season. I mean, genuinely, I think he's good. He was not in the position to succeed as any receiver is at Iowa. It's why you don't see that many Iowa receivers in the NFL. I mean, I can't think of one Iowa receiver in the NFL. Obviously, Iowa tight ends. And I'm like the CEO of sit and watch football with my buddies, the where to go to college thing. It's like, that's my thing. I'm the CEO of that. And I can't think of any Iowa wide receivers. If you can think of one, let me know. But the point is, they don't succeed a lot. So I think that you're going to see this change be great for Bostic, and I think he's a player with a ton of upside. We're going to talk a little bit about, can the Aggies repeat as SEC sack leaders once again? That is going to be the conversation coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. So can Texas A&M repeat as the sack leader in the SEC? Last season, 42 sacks for the Aggies. Tennessee was right on their tail at 41. Can Texas A&M do it again? Yeah, I think they can. I mean, everyone knows this defensive line is no joke. Everyone knows the player that came to Texas A&M from Purdue, who I think many of us believe could be one of the best defensive linemen in the SEC, one of the best pass rushers in the SEC. I mean, Nick Scorton is a guy who is not going to have any issue getting after the quarterback. And then once again, for those that are going to say, well, he's going to get double teamed. How can he handle the double team? If he gets double teamed, it just opens up opportunities for other players to get pressure on the quarterback. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Texas A&M has 45 sacks this year. I don't think that they crush that 40. If they're going to beat that 42 number, I don't know if it's by more than a few sacks. I mean, you know, I don't know if I'm going to sit here and predict Texas A&M have 50 sacks. I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, I see a world where Texas A&M gets 45 sacks and leads the SEC, you know, with some other teams right at that 40, 41, 42 mark. Yeah, I could see that. This team will not have any issue getting after the quarterback, whether it's from the defensive backfield, whether it's from the linebackers, or it's these defensive linemen, interior or the outside guys. Texas A&M won't have any issue getting after the quarterback. And you've got so many guys who are great pass rushers. I mean, I am all in on Texas A&M's pass rush. I think opposing quarterbacks are going to wake up shaking, knowing I have to play Texas A&M tomorrow. I have to play Texas A&M next week. I don't think it's a matchup that quarterbacks and offensive lines are going to be excited about because they're going to get a lot of pressure. I really do believe you're going to see that happen again. I think the Aggies repeat as SEC sack champions. That is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you all so much for being here every single day. Got the microphone back working and rolling today. So appreciate y'all bearing with me yesterday. It was a weird, long day. I'm moving stuff into the new house, and that was just not working. It was crazy, but got it dealt with today. We moved into the new setup tomorrow. Going to have to get some stuff to hang up some things, hang up some, you know, decor and all that for the background, but it's going to be a lot better, and I'm excited about it. Hope everybody has an outstanding rest of their day today, and we will see you tomorrow right here on Locked On Aggies.